How to be a great B2B marketer. Welcome back to a fresh episode of BreakingB2B.com. I'm your host, Sam Dunning, founder over at Breaking B2B. And if you haven't yet, why not join thousands of legends enjoying our unusual weekday emails for weird B2B marketing tips, SEO case studies, ideas, and fresh podcast updates. Head over to BreakingB2B.com and hit that newsletter tab to get stuck in. So today, I've got Sanja Gabler joining me. Sanja is the CRO over at 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗲. Sanja, welcome to the show. How are we?
Good. It's Friday. I'm feeling the Friday vibe. How are you, Sam?
Doing well. Looking forward to this episode. I think it's going to be quite a spicy one. I think there's going to be a lot of actionable tips and hopefully wake a few marketers and founders up in the process and give them a few bits of inspiration. So we're going to be diving into topics like why being a B2B marketer isn't for the lighthearted, some mistakes that you're seeing out in the field as you're previously a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and recently appointed CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. We dive into things like the psychology that you should have as a great marketer, why you should push back and say no more, and what we believe marketers should actually be accountable for moving forwards, as well as touching on how not to be replaced by AI. So first things first, Sanja, why is being a B2B marketer, why is it not for someone who's going to be lighthearted?
Because I think B2B in general is much more complex than B2C. If you can segment that way, I think the market segmenting that way, it's a little bit old school. But I think in B2B, it requires so much more kind of complexity, but also higher than demand, obviously, as a marketeer to enter the B2B space. It is not maybe what we see on an everyday basis as consumers, and you can apply those type of, frameworks or thoughts or theories. But in B2B, I think there is much more complexity in terms of like knowing the product, knowing your audience, knowing where they're hanging out, and whatnot. So yeah, requires much more.
And with that in mind, you've probably seen a lot. I'm sure you've hired your fair amount of marketers, worked with your fair amount of marketers over the years. What are some of the biggest mistakes, or not necessarily mistakes, but I guess issues that you see that come up with marketers that we should tackle head on?
I think, there are two things. One thing is obviously that some marketers can be a little bit more supportive as people, so that
Right.
we tend not to be as, in the driver's seat as I believe that a B2B marketer needs to be. So that's one trait to really consider. If you're going into a B2B marketing space, you need to be very much more in the driver's seat. And that is what a CMO at a B2B marketing company, actually, that's the assignment of it when we're talking about today. And I think the other thing is, once again, you have to know the business much more than when you're going into much more, e-com or more of a fast goods. If you're a B2B marketeer, you really need to kind of trickle down to knowing kind of the software or the product much more in depth. You need to understand the sales cycles. You need to understand, customer dialogues and the delivery model of when we deliver to customers. So that, I think, also is a little bit of a challenge that, not be in the trap of scratching on the surface, so to speak, when you're going into B2B marketing.
Okay. Are you tired of competitors ranking above you on Google, stealing traffic, leads, and mindshare from dream clients every time they're searching for your services or offers on Google? At Breaking B2B, we fix that with our unusual approach to SEO, content marketing, and websites. We craft B2B SEO strategies and websites for revenue, not vanity. Head over to breakingb2b.com to check our results, pricing, or to book a call with me. Let's dive into those. So the first one you mentioned is perhaps being too supportive. What does that mean exactly?
No, so I mean, from my experience, so I usually come in and my assignments are a lot around, we have, this marketing team, and what they do is, traditional marketing. So a lot of events, a lot of collateral, a lot of production.
Right.
We need to kind of, flip the coin. And I think that is a development that we have seen, and we're talking about revenue marketing, a lot of the tech that is enable us to be much more like close to the business and whatnot. And I think here's like a mind shift. Like there's a lot of marketeers that are still kind of comfortable in that supportive area. So you need to kind of flip them and really make them understand, if we don't show of value, that top line growth, and then we're just going to be considered as a cost center, and that is a very liable or risky position to be in internally in a company.
And I can imagine there's a lot of marketers that might push back on that statement. I wouldn't, because I've seen a lot of terrible marketers in my life. And on the flip side, I've spoken to some absolutely fantastic ones. And I think, as from what I've seen, like as you get into larger and larger companies and enterprises, especially in B2B tech and software, it feels like being more of a tick box marketer, as to say, getting instructions from management or middle management to update the slide deck or update the sales email sequence or mess around with the podcast or fix the YouTube thumbnail. It's almost as if you're a small wheel in a massive cog or a massive machine. Whereas on the flip side, when you're in perhaps a smaller business or a startup, obviously a lot more depends on your actions. So what would be your response to perhaps those marketers that are maybe thinking of themselves, not saying they are, but thinking of themselves as a small cog in a big machine?
No, I mean, it's a choice as well. Once again, you can be really good at your job as a marketeer, but still enjoying the fact that you are, this small puzzle bit in a bigger picture. I think that in terms of being competitive as a marketeer, I think is super important. If you haven't now as a marketeer, if you're early on your career, you really need to figure out like what is the reason for being and what type of position are you self and what are you contributing when it comes to marketing. Because I think the future, I mean, today and ahead, I always talk about that with my team, that you need to really be competitive, and for that you need to understand business. If you have chosen to be in a private held company, you need to understand, what brings in money, what costs money, and everything in between. So I think once again, not to be like, saying like, if you're more a supportive character or marketeer, that's fine, that is your choice. I think, however, if you do want to pursue a career in B2B marketing, you need to step up and be more a driver and understanding business and dig into a little bit more of a complexity on what actually the marketing discipline contribute to a company growth.
What's your advice for any marketers that perhaps some of this is resonating with, and they're thinking that maybe I should be doing a little bit more, or maybe I feel a little bit stuck in the role that I'm doing, where I feel like I'm not contributing, but at the same time, I don't have that space to contribute, or I feel like I'm maybe limited by where I am. Like, what would be your thoughts there?
I mean, from my experience, I really learned from, doing things on my own and learning by doing. So I think that if you are interested in pursuing that, you need to kind of, be curious, be interested, go to the sales meetings, listen in to a sales call, go to product and understand, and kind of, have a goal to kind of demo your product yourself to able to know, the features and the tricks and whatnot. So I think it's like really finding those ways to kind of learn on your own and be curious in that. I also think it is important to kind of have that support from your manager to really say that, I want to have clear goals. I want to understand what my, for instance, content contributes, so that the manager also is clear on how the individual or the whole team contributing to, for hopefully some sort of top line growth. But I think learning by doing, I'm not a classically schooled marketeer at all. I started in kind of more business development, implementing CRM, working with developing digital products and web, as we have in common, as mentioned. But I learned all of that by doing it myself and finding ways to kind of explore. And I think that is, that's the only way to kind of be in a driver's seat, to really learn and be curious.
How I think we're of a similar mindset. Like pretty much all the stuff that I think I've got either the best learnings from or the best results long term were almost doing it off my own back, and usually that comes from frustration. I.e., for example, before I started this business, Breaking B2B, like I was terrible at selling, so I started reading sales books and listening to sales podcasts and interviewing sales leaders. And likewise, then I thought I'd started a podcast, and when I first started the podcast, I was awful. I was shaking like crazy. I was so nervous. My communication skills were awful, and slowly chipped away at it and got better. But how much do you think lies within, in this case, the marketer themselves, to have that kind of get shit done attitude? I wanna make myself better so I can hit this point that I want to get to, whether that is, I don't know, becoming a marketing manager, maybe then eventually a head of marketing, maybe eventually a VP or a CMO, or how much relies on great management?
That's such a tough question. I think I don't want to do the split because that seems like super boring. But I'm Swedish, so we're very even. But I think if you are a driven marketeer, you should definitely not go to a company where you would have a management that would position marketing more on the support side rather than in the driver's seat. You can be a super, driven individual marketeer and actually pursuing a much more, going to a company where management maybe not have their eyes on marketing being a position as an important discipline. But if you're a very driven individual, obviously you can change that. For me, instance, when I came into Trapets, this is 2 years ago now, there was a backlog of marketing for I would say like a decade. One of the founders had been the marketing, the CMO, but also, all the hats, all the commercial hats.
Yeah.
And I mean, positioning for me, marketing was like, okay, come Sanja, we have nothing. What do you want to do? Like, how will we go about this? And that was then a lot of my trade as a driven marketeer. So that was like, 80%. And maybe 20% with the management, of the fact that they were very curious and also very open to kind of, okay, we want to learn, we want to understand what B2B marketing, what marketing do for us today and ahead. So I think in that case, then it was a little bit more on the individual side and a bit less on the management side. But once again, it so much depends. And I think it's more like whether you are more supportive marketeer or do you really want to be in the driver's seat, then you should really opt to find, good management, good company that valuates or value marketing as more on the top line growth rather than on the bottom line, cost.
We're going down a bit of a tangent or rabbit hole, but I do quite like this because I think this is going to be useful for B2B marketers. Now, this is going off tangent, but if, for example, a B2B marketer is tuning in and thinking, okay, that all sounds well and good, are there any traits? So let's pretend I'm this B2B marketer and maybe I'm interviewing at a couple SaaS or tech companies that I think look quite cool and I've got some potential for growth. Is there anything I should be asking in those interviews that perhaps could be great questions that I could kind of identify whether there is room for my growth, or I'm going to have a team of management that are going to enable me to actually kind of get to where I want to go, but also contribute actively to the business, whether that is fueling the sales team, fueling revenue, or doing stuff that's going to contribute to the business growth?
I think a question would be a question that I always ask when I, done my due diligence and changed jobs within the marketing field has been, what does successful marketing look like? Because there you can see whether they would lean towards, understanding, it could be in the good side. We have loads of KPIs, or I expect this from marketing, versus we don't really know. Then you really know that, okay, they have no idea what marketing is. So I think that is a really crucial question. It's because that is also, okay, supposedly, what do they expect from you? Do they actually have, KPI, some sort of, structure and some sort of idea on what marketing contributes to kind of the hard numbers? Or is it more like, we need somebody that does nice sales decks, or we need to, have more followers on LinkedIn or whatnot? Then I would say that would give it away a little bit if you ask those questions, and then you can obviously see whether, is this going to be a prioritized thing, or is it more like, we want you to be more the pretty marketeer? So I think that is really important, but that also entitles that you yourself can contribute. So I think data skills, I always talk about, to my content managers, you have great content, but you need to understand on a hard metrics level what that content actually does. Like, okay, is it engaging? Is it actually pushing where we want to do, if it's, engagement leads or whatnot? Like, that is something that I always imposes on my marketing team, that they understand data and actually dig down to the numbers.
Yeah, nice advice. And I suppose on that, flipping back to that interview format, it also depends on, like you say, if you're asking these questions around what you expect from marketing and they're giving wishy-washy answers, I suppose it's also pushing back a bit, like to see, for example, if they're bringing you in as a marketing leader, which it sounds a bit like what you've done, to totally build the marketing unit from scratch. That's a bit different to them expecting maybe you to come in as a marketing manager or head of marketing and perform miracles for a basic wage and then be thrown a load of tasks at. So I suppose it's almost understanding expectations and setting the right footing for yourself and the company as well. And having
for sure. I mean, once again, I've had, situations is like, oh, we want to be market leading brand with like no money. And that you're kind of like, okay, but how, like no money and a very short time. Then, I mean, that is obviously totally disqualifying. I mean, that's not even serious. Then you know that you would have a manager that doesn't really understand, what marketing is all about. So, yeah, but I think, I think once again, for me, when I interview, or if you are a marketeer that is pursuing a new job, I think it's just important to get the feeling of how prioritized is marketing, because it's all about the positioning. The current company where I am, there is a very high and very equal position of both kind of, sales and marketing. But a lot of companies, I think, position maybe, sales above marketing. and that can be fine, and you can probably change that if you're a driven individual. But I think that positioning game is to kind of, you know, get that understanding, and that will help you to know whether, you know, you can be more in the driver's seat, or if they're looking for more the pretty department people, office people.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think so many orgs prioritize sales folks? They're often on a higher wage. They're often more of them. They're often given more incentives. Like, you're now in a revenue leadership position.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
No, I think I mean it is a much more exposed department and role. I mean, on paper, it is that, you know, it is sales that bringing in, you know, the black and white dollars, so to speak, or the green dollars. So I think for that matter, I think there's always going to be a little bit more. You know, we can't be equal. We can be close to equal, sales and marketing, but sales will own a little bit more. You know, they will be valued a little bit higher and incentivized. I've been in my role now for 2 months, and already now I'm a little bit, I would say I'm not shocked, but I'm like, oh my God, it's such an exposed role, and there's a lot of pressure on sales. So I do like apologize to all the CROs in the past.
No need to apologize.
But I do understand now that it is a much more stressful work, and is a much more like higher pressure to get in that top line.
I'm so glad that someone's come on this show and actually taken a stance with this, because so many people give such a flimsy answer. Like, regular listeners or watchers of the show know that I'm not really scared to voice my opinion when it comes to a marketing strategy or a sales standpoint, and that sort of things. I've even done episodes on this show where I've tested out cold calling to VPs and CMOs and stuff like that, and reported back as an experiment. So
Yeah,
we're all up for that kind of stuff. So I'm glad someone could kind of come in and kind of throw where they actually think it's at and why.
yeah, and I think I mean, and this is. I mean, I don't want to go into that rabbit hole, you know, sales and marketing alignment.
No.
That's the constant discussion. But
Yep.
I think, and this also has to do with the positioning of marketing in a company. If you have too big of a delta on the position between sales and marketing, there's going to be like a natural conflict around, you know, the marketing, and you're going to have a lot of work, you know, attributing who contributes to what and whatnot. So already there, if you would notice that there is a delta in the positioning between the two functions, you would then, I would say, naturally expect that there is going to be, you know, a disalignment between sales and marketing, and there will be a lot of discussions around, you know, who did this lead, who sourced that sale, who's going to get, you know, the you know, that and whatnot.
Who's going to President's Club and
Yeah.
all that fun stuff. Right. Hopefully by this stage we haven't annoyed too many marketers. In a second, we're going to talk about prioritization and how you can kind of some of the attributes you need to win as a marketer. Just before we do, when we talked about some of the top mistakes, you also mentioned product knowledge and customer dialogue. How important is product knowledge, do you believe, as a marketer?
I think, I mean, as a general, I think if you are in a B2B SaaS company and working with, you know, a little bit more complex B2B SaaS solutions, I think it is crucial for the marketing team to understand at least, you know, the conceptual work of, you know, the products. As a product marketeer, I mean, this is always also a product marketeer can obviously be in the marketing team, or it could also be in the product team. Here, it's super important if you have product marketer in your marketing team, that person is, or that those people are crucial then to kind of really educate the peers within the marketing in the product. And I think that, you know, in order to kind of translate, you know, communication, marketing, content, you need to understand, you know, what is the actual thing. So for me, so currently now we have really complex products, and I see that we're really scratching on the surface, and that doesn't then become relevant to our audience. And I can see that in our content kind of production and whatnot, that we are scratching a little bit. So we need to like actually click on the button ourselves to kind of experience, okay, what does this do to me? Oh, I can actually see, and I can experience the value. Because then I think that is also a mean to creativity.
Yeah.
So I think it's crucial. I would say, don't be on the surface too much. You dig deeper, and that is going to be a more long-lasting strategy as a B2B marketeer, I believe.
I like it. Something I've been thinking about a lot is with so a lot of our work's SEO and content marketing, and with landing pages, articles that we publish to rank on Google, making those really product led and making sure that we're featuring the product heavily, but also showing the aha moment, making sure we quickly show the time to value. In terms of from a marketing perspective and product, what do you think that, because I think sometimes marketers aren't always the best at understanding things like the problems that their offer solves, that the customer actually cares about, rather than what they think the customer cares about, or the prospect, or the dream client, the dream persona. And again, those kind of jobs to be done that prospects have, those motivators, root causes of the problems that they might be facing, and then the end features or outputs that they want to have as a result. Like, are there any of those that you think are super important to know around your product? Or perhaps, I'm sure I've missed a few, and any recommendations on how you should grasp those?
I mean, I really like the jobs to be done framework, and I think it's it applies also in marketing work. So, for instance, if you're, you know, building a website, I think it's a really great framework to just build requirements based on, okay, how we're building the websites. Let's use jobs to be done frameworks. I think that is a really good way to really understanding, you know, what are the jobs to be done with our product for our potential then target group. When it comes to kind of how to do it, I think that you really need to be in those, listening to those customer conversations, be on sales calls, be with the salespeople when they're doing the pitch, because immediately, just from one call, you can identify as a marketeer, oh my God, I missed this, I missed that. You can get that just from actually just participating, even in a discovery call. Even it doesn't need to be like, you know, first, third, or a demo call, but on the discovery call, just to see, okay, how are they answering? What questions are they asking? Because those are the questions that we need to answer as marketeers, and, you know, in our content. So I think being actively and really close to the sales, like just chip in. I've had targets on my team, not at this company, but previously, like, okay, I want you guys to be on a sales call at least, you know, twice a month. We also had I also had the target that, you know, marketers should be able to demo our product and actually conduct a demo, because it brings a lot of value to the work as a marketer as well. And also that is also going to raise the position of the whole discipline, as a marketer, but also the team. It's going to raise if you are knowledgeable around those things.
Definitely. I mean, these things you mentioned are so useful, right? To understand the common questions that prospects are bringing up on whether it's prospecting calls, discovery calls, presentation calls, demo calls, all that kind of stuff. So useful. So it's yeah.
And I think because what we are tasked to do as marketers, like, okay, we need collateral, we need materials, so that, you know, sales reps can go out and conduct their meetings, conduct their conversations, customer success to have, you know, customer dialogues and whatnot. And sometimes if we're not really in the situation or have experienced the situation, it is a little bit on the bypass line, like, you know. So I think
let's be honest as well, just to quickly put some heat on sales, because we've put a lot of heat on marketing. Salespeople, myself included, as I am historically a seller as opposed to a B2B marketer, we're terrible at giving marketing notes or terrible at leaving notes in the CRM. Absolutely awful. So I'm going to give marketers a green tick there. They probably don't get the best intel from sales. So that's why you need to be involved in the conversation. So you can either pull the recordings or listen in or take your own notes or speak to them after for a drink or a pint or a coffee or whatever you want to do. So
for sure. I mean, the input to marketing is like, you know, obviously it's so poor, like, oh, but you should know. So it's like that, you know, you should know, but you should know as well. Like it, you know. Yeah.
Good fun. Cool. So, and we've touched on product knowledge. We touched on talking to your customers, involving yourself in sales calls. So I think that's a great proactive thing, because there's so much you can pull from it. It's literally like, especially linking that back to the website, like that, the intel that you can pull from sales and customer success calls to gear your homepage, your landing page, your articles with kind of common questions, common problems, goals, jobs to be done is really is gold dust. And likewise, sales collateral. So we'll talk about prioritization, but before we do, what do you think a solid B2B marketer should actually be accountable for?
That is a tough question, like accountable in terms of in the role or responsible as what the delivery of the team.
Yeah, it's very high level, right? And it would vary whether you're a leader and you manage a team, or whether you're part of a team, or whether you're a CMO or something like that. Is there like, from a principal level, kind of some general guidelines that you would encourage folks? Let's say maybe they're earlier on in their marketing career compared to later stage.
No, I think it is. You need to be accountable for to understanding the business that you're in. I think that is something that I've seen, that you can be super good marketeer, knowing, you know, your discipline, whether you're a generalist in marketing or a specialist. But if you do not understand that specific company's business, how they make money, or what are kind of, you know, the keys to success, then you're obviously not going to be, you know, long lasting in the company, especially if you're in a small company. So you really, like, the accountability that I expect from my marketing is that they know the business. And that obviously comes to what we talked about before, knowing the product, knowing how we're selling, and knowing how we deliver it. That has to be accountability for all marketeers, for any individuals coming into a company. Like, you need to learn the company. And especially as like now we're talking, you know, B2B SaaS. So, you know, the business model itself is you know, it's recurring revenue, so not a lot to talk about there, but like go to market motion, other kind of, you know, strategic directions that you have, you need to stay really on top of them and learn what that actually means, so that you can also you know, tweak your marketing work that to that, you know, those strategic directions or pillars, or what have you in your company. So that is an accountability, I would say, I put on my team, and have also in the past. Another thing I think is, and that maybe not specifically to marketeers, but everybody that are contributing to in a company is that, don't take accountability for more than just what you're doing on a daily basis, just making sure, because then work is going to be much more fun. You're going to discover new collaboration touch points with people and peers internally or whatnot. So that is also something that I always talk about. Don't just do your thing, making sure that people have understood. So don't have that waterfall approach, but instead of look it from a little bit of a holistic point of view, because otherwise you get that who did what, and then you have just a backlog of stuff that is not done, basically.
Do you think marketers should always have full visibility into the company in terms of the go-to-market, all the channels that are running, success of channels, revenue, and more?
Do you mean like the full team, that they have the transparency and visibility?
Exactly.
I mean, I think so, but I'm also as a person, very transparent. I believe that if you can create a more bigger picture view, and kind of, if you're a good manager, you can also actually say to your your colleagues, saying like, this is where you contribute within the bigger picture. I believe that if you can be transparent and get an understanding for the bigger picture, then it will be easier for the marketer to understand, okay, how am I contributing into all of this? So I am for transparency. I am very, how can I say, early on, I always, I work a lot with the data element of things. I mean, obviously that's a huge thing for us marketeers. But if you have a large creative team, for instance, they are maybe not as exposed to data as if you're, for instance, a performance marketeer. But I always make sure that everybody are understanding, the marketing KPIs, the basic level of things. So I think that's just super important, and that requires transparency, I would say.
Yeah, because it almost feels like in order to be as successful as you can as a marketer, if you can get that visibility into where the company's at now, what go-to-market motions they're running, what paid channels they're running, what they're doing organic content, and anything else they're doing on the outbound sales, on the inbound motion, where the website's at. If you can get that visibility, then you can know kind of where you're at now. And if you can know stuff about lead flow, MQLs, SQLs, customer churn, if you can get visibility into that, then it's going to encourage you, I would have thought anyway, certainly from my lens as a founder and business owner, like to know where my business is at, and then to know where we want to get to in the next quarter, half, year. Like,
for sure.
To me, it makes sense, but appreciate as companies get larger and larger, they're more considerate of what they want to share with the rest of the team, and these obstacles come up.
Yeah, and well, I think also, like, I mean, there is no kind of, isolated channel. And I mean, we've been attributing our there was a time when that was what we were doing literally all the time in marketing, attribution. And now, like, everything is so connected. So you need to be much more like, okay, so if we're doing something here, this will get an effect on here. If we're doing a campaign here, this will get effect on all the other things. So I think that picture is important. And once again, it's just important to be really clear on okay, what is our kind of main target for marketing? For me, instance, I work with sourced pipeline and closed sales from marketing sources. As long as you're clear on that, then you need to kind of paint the picture of how we're contributing to that end goal, which is the how are we driving pipeline through marketing.
And is there like with your, so do you have a team that you run? I mean, I know you're CRO now, but you've managed marketing teams before, right? And does marketing report to you now?
Yeah, they are currently, but it's in the wait of a new CMO, and I think that's fair. I think also, I mean, I treasure being. I haven't left the CMO role as of yet, even though I'm entering the revenue role, but I think is a really good thing. And as we can see, the company do have both a marketeer and a revenue officer in the management team. It is, as we talked about, if you're having a revenue officer with VP marketing reporting to you, there will always be that positioning and kind of sales will be then always above marketing. So I think I really welcome that trend, and to all marketeers, I think that is a really good make sure to be in a company that actually has an officer in management, because then already there you get the the validation that it's a company that really value and understand the contribution of marketing.
Got it. Well, so on a psychological front, are there any things we're flipping this now, we're going from tactical to mindset, but for perhaps marketers that maybe have worked more on the brand side or something completely different, maybe, I don't know, field marketing or something like that, but maybe they're wanting to shift to more, I do actually actively want to, not to say some of those things can't contribute to pipeline, because I'm sure they can, especially with events. Maybe I have different views on events though, but we won't dive into that today. So with that said, how can you take that mindset shift towards thinking like, I want to really know how the business is run, and I want to almost be able to work out backwards from revenue to presentation to demo call to discovery call to how can we get that qualified lead in and things like that? Like what are the things we can consider? Because I'm sure a lot of marketers are perhaps tuning in and thinking, cool, this is quite a lot of information to take on. Could be quite a stressful thing for some.
My two advice is ask the question why. I would say that is like the top. So if you're getting a request or you get so much things in your marketing, you get so many things that you could do, and it's all over the place. And I was like, tell my team, like, it's a mindset, ask them why. And if you get not a good valid answer why you as a marketer should do something that connects to company goals, then you're like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I just put it, in the nice to have bucket. You don't have to say that, but you mentally do that. So I think that is really good advice. Ask why, because that is a mindset also for the individual. Like, okay, am I going to prioritize this or that? Okay, why am I going to prioritize this? And then you get like, okay, I know this is probably contributes more to company targets than this. So I think that is a really good. I use that a lot in my how I kind of my talks to myself. What should I do? How should I prioritize? And then the other, I mean, obviously, mindset. Sometimes you just have to say no. You can't do everything, and then goes back to the prioritization. Like, okay, what do you say no to? If you don't have a good answer why you should do it and how that contributes to company goals, then don't do it. And that might sound a bit harsh, and I've heard in the past I can be a bit harsh. but it's as a like marketers, we can be busy 24/7, you know. But yeah, you really have to do what the mind shift the mindset has to be like. You need to do what actually contributes to companies' growth, or company what they actually attain to do.
Yeah. Is there a way as a marketer that we can frame that? So, for example, let's say, well, I don't know, someone in management or director levels come to us and said, look, we need to refresh the deck for sales, or we need to redo the demo presentation, or whatever it is. How do we say, like, no, we've got bigger fish to fry, we've got actual revenue targets on ahead, and I actually need to do something that's going to contribute to pipeline this quarter? Like, how do we position that in a way that's going to go down well? We say it as it is.
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on the question, obviously, and also on the other prioritizations. But yeah, one way is to say it as is. Currently, we have these top 3 projects that are prioritized. I would take your request in when I have time. So I think that's a way to go. The other way to go is a bit more diplomatic around it. Like, I hear what you're saying. I put it on the incoming marketing request list, and I get back to you. But that's like, once again, that has to do with whether, I've had CEOs coming like, oh, you need to do this, sales deck or whatever. Like, sometimes you just have to do things and be very tactical about it. But I always like just be very mindful and at least conscious on what you're spending your time on. And once again, it is easy to update the presentation deck. It's not as easy to write a good content piece. So it's also pushing individuals to not take the easy way, but to actually do the hard work.
I like the linking it back to perhaps agreed goals. Like, we agreed that X, Y, and Z was our main priority this quarter. That's what I'm focused on. Like, do you want me to put that on the back burner to update the deck? And then I'm sure that leadership say, oh, no, like, carry on with what you're doing, or something like that.
Yeah. And I think, it's just, it's in business. Like, you're doing sales, and there's always going to be, alternative costs. Like, we are just human. We can't do everything. And I think, especially in marketing, you can literally do PowerPoints. Like, we all talk about, like, when does the death of power, like, it would never die, it feels like, but you can literally fill 90% of a marketer's time with slides and updating slides.
Yeah, it's like me messing around on LinkedIn instead of doing real work. I could spend all my day on there if I wasted time enough.
Yeah. But that's another tip. Like, you can time box the amount of time you have for a task, because then you will be more efficient doing it. So it's like, okay, I can do 30 minutes and update your slide deck. That's all I have.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing, isn't it? However much time you give yourself, however much time you block out, is the time that it will take. Whatever you tell yourself it's going to take, it's going to take. You make it work around that. Or alternatively, you read Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. And then when someone asks you to update the slide deck, you repeat it. You say, update the slide deck? And then they start convincing themselves why it's a bad idea. So you just reverse psychology on them.
Reverse it. Yeah. Sure. Such a great book.
Or you go, how am I supposed to do that with all these tasks you've given me? Brilliant book for communication. I think any marketer should read that. Definitely a seller, but any marketer should read that. Just very, very good for communication. But
for sure,
on that, I think it's a good time to wrap things up. So really appreciate all your wisdom, and there's been a lot of tactical advice for B2B marketers and aspiring marketers and business owners alike tuning in. So really appreciate it. Is there any resources that you recommend, Sanja, that folks should tune into on this topic, or read or check out?
Good. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I think, Sam's, your podcast is a good, entertaining, and then obviously very insightful. I have listened to one podcast, but that show kind of is not in anymore. But it's called the Marketing Book Podcast. I think that's a really great pod, because it's both sales, and it is addressing sales and marketing. And then Never Split the Difference, obviously great book. One book that has not maybe towards marketeers and sales that much, but more like how you conduct your work, is obviously Cal Newport's Deep Work. I think that coming back to that, I think around solving real hard problems requires obviously something else than doing everything, the redundant everyday easy tasks. So that's
lovely. Good stuff. And if anyone tuning in wants to connect with you or learn more about yourself or the business, what's the best way to do so?
No, just reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, and that is the best way to find me. So shoot me a connection, or DM me if any questions.
Excellent. And we'll put those links just below. I want to thank you once again. Really enjoyed the chat.
Thanks, Sam. Really enjoyed it as well, and happy Friday to you.
Yeah, likewise. Hope you have a good one, and thanks very much for the audience to listening or watching today. And if you want to join thousands of legends enjoying the weekday newsletter, then head over to breakingb2b.com for more unusual B2B marketing ideas, insights, and podcast updates. We shall catch you on the next one. Cheers for tuning in.